Hi everyone, Thomas Desmond here, and today I want to talk about XM Cloud Components Builder. It's an early access and it's the new way for building modular components for your XM Cloud pages. Recently, I built out the SUGCON North America site and tried to use components as much as possible. So today I want to just show off how I created this call to action component right here, where I have the text on the left, image on the right, and if we shrink it, we even get a top-down view of it here, so it shrinks and works for smaller screens. So let's jump into XM Cloud Components Builder and start building our first component. I'm logged into portal.sitecorecloud.io, and I want to find my XM Cloud instance. If you've got an instance of XM Cloud, you should be able to get into components. It's early access and it's worth trying out. So I'm going to head into my staging environment for XM Cloud, and I want to head over to Tools once this loads, and I'll see Components. So let me just open that in a new tab here. Now there's one prerequisite that I want to share. I have already set up my styles, at least the base styles, for me to use inside of components. This is not what I want to cover in the video. I want to cover just building a component, but in order to build components, you do need to have some styles set up if you want them to look pretty good. So the basics though here is that on the left-hand side, you're going to see the different style elements that you're able to choose from, but you want to work from the top down. You want to choose your fonts so that you can then choose typographies, and then you can add those typographies to your different elements and your text elements. So you kind of build from the top down to create your styles. I want to focus though on building components. So let's go back over to the components and start building our first component. I've got this Thomas training section up here. This is a collection that I've added. I already have a venue item here, and this is kind of the call to action that we're going to build out. This is what had the text in it, but we're going to build a brand new version of it from the ground up. So I'm going to add a component. I'll name this the call to action. Save, make sure we're in the right collection. Save that, and we'll start editing. So we're in the component builder. This is where we want to build our component. And if I click on this element, we can see that we get this nice big grid. Grid sizing is on the right-hand side, 5 by 12. And we can start adding our elements. We can add an element here, and when we click it, we see that we get all of these different elements that are available to us. So what I want to build is using an image and then a card, because I want the card to contain that text that we had. If I put in my image, I can append it to the section, and I can drag this to the right, and then shrink this down to the middle. So we have an image on the right-hand side. I can click back into this left section, add an element, and now add a card, and I want to pin this inside section. And for this one, it automatically jumps into the left-hand side. So how I want to add those elements of text inside of my card. If I add an element, I can look into my different text elements, and I want it to be an H2, and append that inside my card. And maybe you decide that you don't want an H2, you can actually choose a different text element from inside of here. But at this point, I want to just hard code some data so that I can see what it might look like. Radisson Blue Mall of America, and this is a heading 2, and I can double click to make sure that I'm actually on the heading. So it's a heading 2, but it sure looks like regular text, and that's because we haven't applied any styles to it. If we go on the right-hand side and we actually choose a style, we can go to all elements, and I've got this just default heading 2. If I apply it, it will apply, and now it looks a whole lot more like a heading. I want to add that next element. So inside of my card, I've got the card selected. I have an add element, and I want to add a paragraph section inside of my card. And this is going to be that kind of welcome text to our venue. Again, no styling is automatically applied here, so I can add a style. Do I want default? Ooh, that's a little big. Let me go to my small section here. And last, we can add another element to our card. And let's say this is a heading 4, and at the end of our card, and this will be explore the venue. This is what's going to link to the venue and send people out to actually maybe book their hotels. But right now, I'll just say this is going to link to www.sitecore.com, just to get a link in there. And also make sure we select it. And we'll apply our default heading 4 style. So that's pretty basic section over here. We've got our heading, paragraph, and text here for the link. If we look, that's kind of close. We're getting there. We're getting close to what our component wanted to look like. Let me add in a picture over here as well. So image source, and I'll just paste in the URL. I've taken this from the image that's already on the SUGCON page, so I'm just going to paste it into that URL there. Cool. We've got the very basics of a URL, or very basics of a component here that's building out our page. And let's say that we want to actually, in this card, we've got this white card styling, but I want a little more padding around. So I can actually go to all elements, and if I apply that white card, and I can click on this little, these little gear icons or little customize icons here. If I customize and go to full control, I now have full control over my styles and can add more styles to something. Maybe if I just want kind of a one-off style. And I want more spacing, so let's see if I got spacing. I'll have large card spacing. Nice, I like that because it brings in the elements a little bit more and keeps them a little bit off the edges. But we have a pretty simple component here. We've got our heading, our text, our picture, and it's all hard-coded in there. We want to eventually use data sources and map this to our template. But right now, I want to just kind of see how this looks as a component. And I want to see this on different screen sizes. So I can click on this Edit Grid button and it brings up the UI here. And one thing that I want to reiterate again is this is an early access. So the UI might change, the functionality might change, but I want to show off how it's like building right now. And I'm sure a lot of what I show off today is going to apply. Some things might change if you're working with this after it's been fully released, or even in early access, things are changing pretty quickly. But you can see right now we're seeing the extra large version of our component. We can see extra large. This is the maximum size. That's not bad. Large looks pretty good. Medium, it's getting a little tight, but it's not too bad. But once we head into small, things are getting kind of squished. Extra small, very squished, and extra small, very squished. So maybe we want this one to be medium and above, and then we'll make a second version for small. You can remember here when I pull this in, what we actually have end up is the text on top and image on the bottom. So to do that, we need to create a version for these smaller pages. So I can say for this version, if I go to this little arrow here, I can say for this version, I want it to be for medium and above. I'm going to create a second version down below that's going to handle the small and below sizes. Okay, now, so let's add that second version that we're going to use for small screens. The first thing that I want to do is actually change this so that it's applied only for small screens. And for this, we don't really care too much about the grid because what I need to add first is a block element. And the block element is what allows us to kind of have a growing and shrinking section. Because I have text on top of an image, I want to have a block that allows this to flow better. Essentially what it is a div that covers the entire area, and it's going to allow that flex to happen so that the text won't kind of overlap the image. If you find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of overlapping items, you might need a block to separate them, allow you to build and have this kind of flex div in your elements. So first off, I'm going to add a card. That's going to be where we hold all the text that we were interested in. And second, I will add the image inside of my block. So we've got a card up top and an image down below. And something you might find helpful is using this hierarchy area down here. If you click on section, you get the whole section selected. We can see its children are a block. And inside of that block, we have a card and an image. And that happens in the same one up here where you can kind of use this to see the hierarchy of all your components. It can be pretty helpful if you're trying to select a specific component or just kind of find out how things are built. So let's add in our elements for our text. We had a heading 2 inside of our card. Make sure the card's selected. We had a paragraph inside of there. And finally, we had that heading 4 for our link at the end of the card. I can paste in my data. Here we just had explore the venue. And let me apply my styles. I think, yeah, we like the small text there and the heading here. And again, I'll just link this as to sitecore.com for now, just so we see something in there. But we want to make sure that that's a link in the end. Oh, and let me change my picture. Cool. We have a small version and a large version of our component. So let me rename that. This is going to be large format screen. This just helps me out later. And small format screen. Cool. We have two components that are good for large screen and small screen. This is our call to action that we've built in XM Cloud Components Builder. The big part of components here is that we're supposed to have modular UIs. We're supposed to be able to use these components everywhere or on multiple sites, multiple apps. But right now we've got a lot of hard-coded text. This hard-coded text is not good for modularity. Let's see how we can map this to a template inside of XM Cloud. And one thing to note is that data sources for components can be from XM Cloud, Content Hub, really any outside data source that you want can be set up. For this instance, I used XM Cloud, but you can use Content Hub 1 or even other data sources, so it's pretty flexible there. But if we head into our content editor, let me show you the template that I already have created. So inside of templates, if we go down to feature, SUGCON base components, and I go to my CTA, you can see I have a template here already that has the headline, text, link, and image. And I should probably have link text in here as well, but I don't right now. I just have the headline, text, link, and image. But that's enough to at least map some data inside of our component. Another thing that needs to be realized in Content Editor is that you need to have the settings properly set up for your front-end as a service. So inside of settings for my application, specifically SUGCON North America, I have towards the bottom, the front-end as a service component data source templates, and I have my CTA inside of here. I also have the hero, but I have that CTA, that call to action saying, hey, SUGCON North America, you have access to this call to action template as a mapping item. So back in the builder, instead of having this hard-coded data, I can choose my text source on the right, and I want it to be mapped. Now my data source I should have available is CTA because I've set it up to be a data source. And the top here, I want it to be a headline. The section down here should be mapped to text. And the link here is mapped to my link itself. And I can even change my image source to be properly mapped. I'll do the same down below. Make sure that my data source is set properly. I can have my headline. Oops, not the link. I want to go to my text. And last, we have our link here. Oh, forgot the image. Image mapped to our source. And you'll see that now we've got some of this funky data in here, single line text, example of rich text from XMC data items. This is the sample text that gets mapped inside of here. Because we've now mapped this to a generic data source, we don't have any of that hard-coded data in here. But now we have a modular component that could be used in Pages, and if we set the data source in Pages, it'll get properly populated with the mapped data. So let's take a look at that. If I go back to XM Cloud, let me open up a Pages tab. And I want to, once this is loaded, head over to my North America site. And I can see this is what it already exists as, but this promo here is the venue item. We want to actually start using our new component, or at least paste it in or throw it in and see what it looks like. If I go to components, let me collapse some of these. Why aren't my components showing up? Because I haven't staged my components. I need to make sure that inside of here, I've actually staged these components so that I can see them inside of Pages. So I've come back to Pages. I'll probably have to do a refresh. And I should see a new item in here. Thomas training. Perfect. That's what we want. We want to see our call to action inside of here. And now it's pretty simple to get this onto the page. I can just grab my component, drag it in, and drop it onto the page. And because this has a data source, it wants me to assign content. It wants me to assign basically the content item to it. It'll pop up with this. We can find in Subcon North America, in data, call to action. I already have a call to action data item created, and I'll assign that. So it should get dropped in now, and it looks almost the same as our other component. Styling's a little different, but close enough. If you need to change the data source item, you can use this link up here, select a different content item, and that'll let you choose a different data source. Maybe if you weren't ready to pick one in the beginning. But we now have a component that we built really quickly in XM Cloud Component Builder on XM Cloud pages, and it's ready to be used. We can check out the preview button in the top right, and it'll let us see a preview of our site. I can shrink this down, and you see that our image is now top and bottom. If we grow the page, let's see, if we grow the page, we should see it then change into that side-by-side version, and we have our component in XM Cloud. So pretty cool there. And I'm going to delete this because I don't want this to confuse anyone else who comes back here and think that we have a component that needs to be shown here. But if we make changes inside of here, we can stage them, and those will automatically be seen inside of pages. Make sure you publish these if you want them to be available live. But we just built two components, or we built one component with two versions inside of XM Cloud Component Builder, and we're able to easily use that inside of XM Cloud. Now, one thing that I want to talk about that's worth noting is how do these get rendered on the page? When you actually build a component in Component Builder, what you're building is a web component. Now, web components are a standard API that can be used on XM Cloud, other browsers, other frameworks, anything where you have HTML. You're likely able to just drop your web components into there, but usually web components render client-side. But client-side, that's not our ideal form for rendering. So what JSS team has done is that they actually have the ability to wrap these web components in React Server components, so they're able to render on the server and perform in static site generation or server-side rendering. And this is done automatically for you if you're on JSS 21.2 or above. If not, that's fine. It'll render client-side, it'll look beautiful, it'll show up for your users. It'll just be using client-side rendering instead of server-side or static site generation. So I think that's important to note that these are building out underlying web components that can be server rendered if you're using the cool new versions of Sitecore JSS. That's the video here. I just created a component in the early access XM Cloud Components Builder. I showed off using different paragraph, heading, images, creating our cards, and setting these up with the grid as well. I staged them and made them available inside of pages. We drag and drop them onto pages, make it easy available to start using in XM Cloud. I really enjoyed building up the Subcon North America site using mostly components, and I think it's going to be a great way to build modular components in the future. So keep up with the releases. It's in early access right now, so expect some changes, expect things to get better, but I'm really excited even now in early access for how it's looking. If you're interested in more XM Cloud content, Sebastian has been creating a great series about XM Cloud. I'll link that as well. I have some content about web components that I'll link down in the description. If you like this content, please leave it a like. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you can keep up to date with the latest Sitecore products. Thanks.